Hi. Well, I'm Elaine Erne. I'm living in Philadelphia, but I'm from central Pennsylvania, but I escaped when I went to Carnegie Mellon. So I went to Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh and studied painting and glass blowing there, and then went to Tyler School of Art and got a master's degree in glass casting. And I'd been working in that for several years. When I started, I was working like a day job at a receptionist desk, and I just did this little sketch of stuffed animals hanging on a clothesline, and like everything just changed because I had been working in glass casting doing figurative work with found objects, and it was sculpture. And once I did the stuffed animals on the clothesline, I thought, well, I could try to make this in glass, and I tried to do it in glass pieces, but it didn't work right, and I realized that I had to go and make these as drawings and prints, so I just stopped doing glass altogether, except I still teach a class in glass casting. But as I tell my students, your idea has to lead you to the correct material. You can't just say you're a painter and then paint everything, because if the idea doesn't work as a painting, then you're not true to your idea. And as an artist, you need to be true to your ideas, not your so-called material. So I started working on these as the lives and charms of stuffed animals as lithographs, wood blocks, and some etchings, but also the big drawings. And I took the little sketch of the stuffed animals hanging on a clothesline, and just turned that into what I thought was a big drawing at the time. It was like 40 by 72 inches, which is basically that size, but sideways. And it seemed really huge, and it had all the characters in it that are in the ones that are up here. And I just started drawing. First, just sketched out the whole clothesline, clothespins, the stuffed animals, and then just started building up the values. I didn't really have a plan of attack. It just kind of built itself up. And after that first drawing, I realized I needed them to be that big or bigger. And they're just basically all layers and layers of pencil that are just regular pencil. It's not like graphite sticks or graphite powder. And now they take me this one took like 3 years to do. And the one I just finished was the one behind you guys. I finished it the day we brought it down here. So, so that one only took 1.5 years. So I was really happy about that. But they're about, the lives and charms of stuffed animals is basically about being in situations you can't control, but the situation you're in doesn't allow you to actually get out of it either. So you just keep pretending everything's okay. So that's more based on where I grew up. My home life was not all that happy from the inside out. From the outside in, it looked great. Lived on a beautiful farm, animals, good schools, like soccer, ice skating, violin, art lessons. But in reality, it was not like the happiest situation. And I didn't really realize that till I was not there anymore. So the stuffed animals are kind of the different parts of me from growing up for those 18 years until I left. And then so some of the stuffed animals, they represent different parts of me. The doll, the Lanie Doll, is basically just me. And then like Pinky Dog actually exists in real life. Some of the other bunnies exist in real life from my childhood. And then the clown can be any kind of evil person you want them to be. I mean, we just had one a couple years ago for everyone. So, but this one relates more to my father and like my father's friends. So, so I decided to do them in pencil because I just saw them as black and white and grays, and pencil can build up like a luminous quality, unlike charcoal. Charcoal's a little denser. I mean, it is very, very black, but I find with the pencil, by going in different directions, I can create a lot of movement with the pencil mark and also more depth with the pencil. So a drawing like this one, the background, like the wall in the back, probably started with a 2H pencil all going up and down, and then the next layer would have been an H pencil going across. And pencils come in different hardnesses, softnesses, so H's are hard, So like a 7H is super hard and makes basically no line at all. And they go up to 12B, but I only go up to 9B. That makes a dark line with hardly any pressure. So as I build them up with like the H's and the HBs and then the B's, and then I double back to lighter or harder pencils again and just keep building up. And as I go, I start changing the direction of the pencil. So with, say, the one with the Lanie Doll, with the duck, by the time I got to like layer number 6, I started making sure that all the pencil mark was in a motion in a circle to show like the water. And luckily I can switch hands when I draw, so I could get to part of the circle, take the pencil and complete the circle without actually really stopping. And also, I didn't know I could do that until one day I was like, where's my pencil? And I realized it was in the other hand. And I was drawing because my arm was tired. So it's just a slow buildup of pencil and just very carefully trying to get like a nice value range within the stuffed animals to show a light source. And to do that, I just do a lot of sketches and slowly figure out where the lighting's coming from, and then do sketches with ideas of light coming from the left or right, top, bottom, whatever, and make sure I pick the right one, because once I get to a certain point, I can't change it. I just have to start over again, which has happened. I've gotten halfway through and realized it was not right, and I couldn't erase it, so it was just like, cut the paper again and just start again. So, and I'm also working on this other series called The Lives and Trauma, or The Secret Lives of Houses, which are all these houses like yelling at each other. They're done mostly in lithographs and etchings, and they're a lot more spontaneous, so they don't take as long to do. But with these guys, I do spend a lot of time, and like a lot of it is not just drawing, but like sitting there and figuring it out. Because as I said, once I make a mistake, I can't go back after a certain point. I don't know, I'm good at answering questions, so if you have questions, I can. Oh, like if I get to a point, I was doing this one drawing, Mr. Bunny hits the road, he just like got run over, so there's a tire track through him, and I had the wrong tire track, so I had to do them again. Like I didn't like how they looked, and yeah, so I realized that even if I erased them, the old ones would show through, so I just needed to do the drawing again, because I was never going to be happy with it. So like with the one with the behind you, the clown actually, when I started, was in the middle, but I realized that was wrong, and I was like, well, I hadn't added any value yet. It was all just a line drawing, so I was like, well, I could either start adding the value and just live with it, or hate it in like 6 months and have to start again. So I basically traced all the stuffed animals that were in the middle and on the right, and then took the tracing paper, drew on the back side, and then transferred them. So made my own like transfer paper, and then went from there. So yeah, if it gets to a point that I can't, if I get to that point and I can't fix it and I realize I made a mistake, it's just a very sad day. It's an ice cream day. So,
for pieces as big as these, how do you physically get to like the middle and work on them?
I have scaffolding and a really bad ladder, so I need to get a new ladder. So, but I bought scaffolding that the top highest step is like here, so I can get to the top of the drawing. I draw them they're nailed to the wall like this, so I have a group of friends that have helped me with all these things. One person's back there, Nicole, raise your hand, who has been suckered into helping me take stuff up and take stuff down. So on the wall, I have a piece of paper already down as like a backing paper, and then I usually can see what size the drawing is going to be, so I'll have like something like that I can unroll myself, but actually Nicole, you helped me hang that paper. And then for something like this, I have paper that comes, I buy it from Germany, from Dirk Weber, and they make paper that's 94 by 50 yards, a 350 weight heavy duty drawing paper. I had to buy that because even though America is like everything bigger is better, they don't make big paper here anymore. You can't get any rolls bigger than 72 inches. So I ordered it from Germany, and did you know that paper is not that expensive, but shipping and customs is? The poor customs guy was trying to help me figure out how much it was going to cost. He's like, well, how much cotton is it? I'm like, well, I think it's 100% cotton. He goes, nope, it's 25%. Remember that, it's 25%. I'm like, okay, it's 25% cotton. So, and then I didn't really realize how much paper weighs in a roll. It was like 105 pounds. And two friends of mine, I did pay them, said they'd help me take it up the stairs to my studio. And they were two really nice guys who were kind of showing off until they got to the first landing. And then they're both like, okay, this is harder than we thought. And I'm like, yeah, just don't die. So we unroll it from the roll on the floor and then cut it, and then we'll start on one side, nail it down, make sure it's level, and roll it across, and just nail across the top and bottom and along the sides. For ones that are more vertical, I just nail the top, and then we just let it drop down and nail along the sides and on the bottom. And that's how we also hang them for shows. So luckily, Nicole's boyfriend, Pete, is like 6'5", so he could just stand, and we didn't even need a ladder. So that's how I get them on the wall. And when they're done, I don't spray them with fixative, that they're too big. When you spray with fixative, you have to do like a nice continuous stroke. And I can do something with something that size, but this I can't. So I just like live on the edge and put glassine on them and roll them up and fix them when I come. I think there's photos on Instagram of I had to fix some smudge areas. So.
Do you have a favorite?
A favorite? I am quite partial to like the one I just finished, because thank God it's done. And I am kind of, this one kind of went, most of them were singular stuffed animals, like the earlier parts of the series, so this is when it started getting more interactive, I guess. So I'm happy that I figured this out. I'm happy that I could draw rope every day during the pandemic. I found that drawing 1 foot of rope takes 3 hours. And then I was getting kind of crazy, so I decided to measure how much rope was in there, and it turned out to be like 70 feet. So, you're hitting a bad zone when you sit there starting measuring what you're drawing. So I'd say right now, I'm just really happy how these two came out with all the stuffed animals, and how I feel like, I don't know, I kind of connect to them. At the same time, when I finish a drawing, I start to, I don't know, I disconnect a little bit. Like that's how I know it's done. It's like I don't feel like it needs me anymore. It's like they're done with me, so they can live on their own. But I just kind of like these two in that you can jump around from. Anyone could have a relationship with any of the stuffed animals there and have a favorite if they want. And it was just, they were more of a puzzle to figure out as well, because I had to think about the lighting for each stuffed animal, plus the lighting for the rope, the lighting for the whole thing in general, and then figuring out when it was finished. Or I didn't really figure out when it was finished. It just was like, oh, okay, I'm going to start another drawing. Because I don't usually have them more than one drawing going on at a time. I work on prints and whatnot, or the other series, but I don't usually have 2 big drawings going on at once. It's just gets too complicated. So I've now started one called Mr. Bunny Takes a Nap, and he's in a slab in a morgue. So I've been searching morgue storage units. My search history lately has gotten very interesting. But they're actually quite fascinating. So I've started working on that one, and I'm thinking about another one called Mr. Bunny's the greatest thing since sliced bread. So he's just Mr. Bunny kind of sliced up. You can figure out the rest. So I haven't decided what, if the knife should be there, or if he should be on like a cutting board. It'll just come together at some point. But I'll figure that out as I figure out the one I'm working on now.
Hi, thank you. You said when you were working on this painting back here that you sort of realized it was wrong, or you didn't like it. Is that kind of an aha moment for you, or is that something that over time you realize oh, I don't like the way this is
I
working
just,
out?
after I had it all, like line drawing of everything placed, and I had the clown in the middle, and the bunny was on one side and the dolls on the other side, it was too divided down the middle. So I realized compositionally, I teach observational drawing at Drexel University and also at Moore College of Art and Design and University of the Arts. So I'm always harping on composition to my students. So then I hear myself telling them like, well, this doesn't work right. So I realized it didn't work. And I sat there thinking, well, I kept telling myself, tell yourself it works, because changing this is going to take about 2 weeks to do. And I was just like, and then what if it doesn't work when you change it? And I was just like, well, I could not start adding the value because I knew it was wrong to me. No one else probably would have noticed, but it would drive me crazy. So.
I'm really curious what you talked about earlier about really needing and wanting to focus on light, and how that was going to incorporate into the drawings. And something we're noticing here, right? This space has light as it shines on. Do you have to do you think at all about how light in the space of where you're going to post your work will impact how you draw? Or is it kind of more of you're going to draw the light and hope the light within the space works?
Yeah, I draw the image for the image's sake. I can't really control where they go. I mean, it would be great if there wasn't any glare or anything, but that I don't have any control over that. Even in my studio, there's glare. So even though I try to set things up so there isn't. So I realize that's gonna happen. It's just something to accept. And, even if they weren't ever going to be shown, I'd still do them. Like they're for me, and I guess, there's, so, I don't like that they'll just get rolled up now and put in a corner until they go somewhere else. Seems kind of sad, but I also know that they'll get made no matter what. So, and I can't see myself making them smaller and a different material won't get the glare, because I think the material is right for them. I mean, I try to imagine them as paintings or charcoal, and it just doesn't have the same feel. So I guess I just accept that there are things I cannot control, like my cats. But, well, I did have my studio at home for a while, but one thing my cats like to do are jump against the walls and then go. So I came home once and I was just like, oh, that's bad. I'm just glad the claws weren't out. So after that, I was like, I guess I'm going to have to rent a studio again. So, because I bought a house, I thought, oh, first floor will be the whole studio, condensed, cost saving measures, but not with cats. So, but
Thank you. Question or comment? Not sure. I know you've played with etchings with your houses, but have you tried doing these with mezzotint?
I did these in silk aquatint.
I think you should try mezzotint.
Silk aquatint is the same as mezzotint.
It does not show the same luminosity.
Yeah, but it has more painterly quality. I also don't want to do all the rocking. Are you gonna rock the plates for me?
Maybe if you pay me.
That's not happening. There's mezzotints. I don't know if you're not a printmaker. Mezzotints are using a metal plate and a rocker and making like a texture on it that holds ink and gives you a super black. And then you wipe out the texture to get your whites, and you kind of, it's like a reductive drawing going backwards. A silk aquatint is a faux mezzotint or faux aquatint in that you have a plastic styrene or plexiglass plate, and you put a 110 silkscreen mesh. You glue it down basically with black acrylic paint so it looks black, and you paint with white acrylic paint to fill up the mesh. The mesh holds the ink, and the white acrylic paint fills up the mesh, so it's like it's a stop out, so wherever the paint is, it won't hold ink. So it gives the same effect as a mezzotint with less work. So, but it gives you super darks, because the mesh holds a lot of ink. And same with the mezzotint, the rock metal holds a lot of ink. So these are all just graphite pencil drawings. This is layers and layers and layers of pencil. So I could never do a mezzotint this big.
The process you described of going in with like an H pencil and building up to the darker pencils, and then starting again, that gives you a depth. Why? How did you come upon that? I'm sure you said this in your talk. It's kind of an extraordinary surface, and
I put up the first drawing I did. I just drew it out, and then I just started, this sounds terrible, coloring it in with the pencil. And then I was like, well, that's not dark enough. So I went back with a different pencil and went a different direction. And I was like, well, that's still not dark enough. So I went back with another pencil, a darker pencil, in a different direction, and just kept building up the layers. So each layer of pencil I put over would make it darker. So like something like in here, probably just has, like right here, probably just has like one layer of a 2H pencil. But then if you get down in here, it's probably like a 2H, an HB, and a B. But then if in the background, it's most likely, I think there's 12 layers back here. So I think it's like a 2H, an H, an HB, a B, a 2B. Then I jump back to a 2HB, and then went to a 4B. And then I kind of go back and forth between a 4B, 6B, 9B, and just keep going different directions. So I cover up more and more paper. And then the last layers, I keep the direction a certain way. So back here was more kind of back and forth, and then down here was more static, straight across. And then with that one, it was more keeping it a circular motion, so kind of would fit the feel for water. So it's, the first few layers are almost more grid-like with horizontal, vertical, and diagonal layers of pencil. So the whole thing would start out with a 2H pencil all the way across. Then I'd come back with a 3 or like a H pencil all the way across, going a different direction. Then a B pencil going a different direction all the way across. And then also drawing in the stuffed animals as well. And then slowly, some areas just don't get anything more drawn on them because they're done. They've hit their max. And then I'll just work in more into each stuffed animal and then go into the background. And at some point, it's kind of more just jumping around, seeing what needs to be done and what shadows need to be darker. I don't do a lot of erasing unless it's actually a mistake that I have to erase out. So it's not a reductive drawing in that way. It's all just adding more pencil. So the erasing is only for correction. So, and I go through a lot of them. I use them. You can buy pencil extenders, so I'll use them till they get about this big. And then they go into like a little pile of used pencils. So I have like a jar of used pencils, but I don't use as many as people think I do because I think of the layering I do with like, the hard pencils don't go down as fast. And then with the directional changes, it covers up a lot of the layer behind it. And then when it gets to a softer pencil, sometimes it's like kind of enhancing the pencil under it. So I've never really counted how many pencils. I've kept shavings because the floor is totally covered with shavings because I don't use a pencil sharpener. I just like shave it off with an X-Acto blade. And I only use, I use Staedtler Mars pencils and Derwent 9B pencils because I don't like Staedtler Mars after 6B. I don't use other brands because I found that those two have the richest quality to them. So I really should, you guys want to buy stock in those. So, I buy a lot. When Pearl went out of business in Philadelphia, I bought all their Staedtler Mars pencils, like about 500 of them. And the woman was not very happy. And she scanned them one by one. So I have this I kept it. It's receipt's like 6 feet long. And before I took them up, I actually like broke them up into Bs, 2Bs, thought I was being helpful. And she just like dropped them on the table and just went one by one. And I was like, okay, well, you're trying to keep your job longer because the place is closing. So I still have some of those 500, but I did try different pencils and I found that those two brands were the ones I liked best. And then I love the little clicker erasers because you can fix things, very tight problems. So, and I just love drawing. I think that's obvious. But when I teach drawing, I do tell the kids like I love to draw. So you know, it's just a good way to like kind of, I don't know, meditate too. Like I try to leave them with a sense of like drawing is a lot of fun, even though I'm going to fail you if you don't do this right. Apparently I'm tough but fair with a morbid sense of humor. But yeah, so I just love drawing. I just love pencils. I don't know. I think I always just loved pencils, and then got sidetracked by glass and then came back. So, I don't know. Other questions? I do own hundreds of stuffed animals, and I did not buy them. People just give them to me.
So personally, I'm super drawn to this drawing. I think it's gorgeous. Curious to know, how did you, because we were talking about the different shading and layering, especially because I can understand with the wall, right, that dark and dense, but as you're trying to figure out water, and especially because you want it to look like water, but you also still want to see her legs, how did you kind of play with the pencil like layers here, because you're trying to still have structure up here, if that makes sense?
Well, first I thought about drinking a lot. Decided that was not going to help me figure it out. So I sketched in the stuffed animal, the doll first, and actually did some just drawing of her as if it wasn't in the water, and then started just so that there was like a form already there, and then just thought about like when the water covered it, what would it look like? And then this is the drawing I got stuck on with the water, trying to figure it out over the doll. I had to put it away for a while because I knew I was going to do something that I could not fix, and I had already spent almost a year on it, and I'm like, I cannot mess this up. And then I kind of just made myself think about when you see something through water, for one thing, it's distorted. You can't see the value changes crisply, and things just kind of disappear. So once I got myself past the point of like thinking it has to be super crisp, I could just kind of let things fuzz out a little bit as I draw. So it was more like just doing a bunch of sketches, and also I don't set stuff up to look at, I just figure it out. It's like a puzzle. And once it hits that it looks right, and other people will say it looks like water, because for a long time it did not. It looked like a bullseye. I just kind of wander on through it until it works. So I spend a lot of time with these, like in my studio. And never dance to the pixies on scaffolding. It's very dangerous. Okay. But yeah, so lives and traumas of stuffed animals. So they see everything. Just remember that.